Good morning, class 12. Welcome to your economics class. So students, as we all know that in the last class, we started with the Indian economy portion of your syllabus, right? So we basically discussed about the Indian economic system. That means after independence, India was required to have a new administrative system. So the then Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, decided to develop India into a mixed economy. So mixed economy is a form of economy which has elements of both capitalist and socialist economy. In a mixed economy, all the major decisions are jointly taken by the government and the private sector. But students, in the other two forms of economy, that is in the capitalist and in the socialist form of economy, what happens? In the capitalist economy, the means of production are owned by the private sector. So the prices are determined by the market forces of demand and supply. Whereas in the socialist form of economy, all the major decisions are taken by the government. It is the government who owns all the means of production, and it is the government who makes all the major decisions. It is the government who runs the country. Okay. So Indian economy was converted into a mixed economy by the then Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And then we discussed about the meaning of a plan. A plan is basically a coordinated series of actions which are required to achieve some long-term goals as well as some short-term goals or objectives. We have two types of plan. One is the 5-year plans, which keeps on renewing after every 5 years. That means after every 5 years, we got another new 5-year plan. These 5-year plans started right after the introduction of the Planning Commission in 1950. So the Planning Commission was introduced in 1950 and the first 5-year plan was introduced in the year 1951. So students, the first type of plan that we have is the 5-year plans, and the second type of plan that we have is the perspective plan, 20 years of plan. Okay. And students, we discussed about the goals of the 5-year plan. So it basically has 4 goals: growth, modernization, self-reliance and equity. So this is what we discussed in our last class. Today let us discuss about the agricultural sector. So today we will basically understand about the agricultural sector and the various reforms or the various policies undertaken in the agricultural sector. So students, after independence, the condition of Indian agriculture was in a very bad state. The British had exploited all the Indian resources, so it was very much required for India to have some kind of reforms in its agricultural sector, because around 75% of the Indian population at the time was dependent upon agriculture. So it was very much required to develop some new strategies in order to revive the agricultural sector. So students, various agricultural reforms were undertaken. The first reform which was undertaken was land reform. So land reform basically means changing in the ownership of land holding. So what happens? Only some few rich farmers have most of the land, whereas the poor and the landless farmers did not have any land. So the main idea was to give some amount of land to the poor and to the landless farmers as well. The main idea was to prevent exploitation of the poor farmers by the large farmers or by the zamindars. So students, the main essence of land reform was land to the tiller. Tiller means the cultivator, the one who cultivates the land. And who cultivates the land? The small farmers who do not have their own land. So the small farmers are hired by the large farmers to cultivate the land, and in return they are just given some amount of money. So the small farmers have no incentive to think about the improvement of the agriculture. Why? Because anyway they will not be getting any share of this improved agricultural productivity. So they had no incentive of improving or using modernized techniques. So with the point of view, so with the aim of increasing the agricultural productivity and with the aim of improving the condition of the tillers or the condition of the cultivators, the government thought of introducing this land reform. So several steps were taken under land reforms. Number 1, zamindari system was abolished. So what happened in the zamindari system? The zamindars acted as an intermediary between the government and the farmers. The farmers were required to pay some taxes to the zamindars. So this zamindari system was abolished, and now the farmers could directly give away the tax to the government. They were no longer exploited by the zamindars. Then students, the second step adopted was consolidation of land holdings. That means initially, before these land reforms were introduced, the farmers used to have, some of the farmers, not everyone, some of the small farmers used to have some small scattered units of land. So now they were given one big plot of land instead of small scattered units of land, because one big plot of land was far better than having some small scattered units of land. And then students, another measure adopted was tenancy reforms. Tenants are nothing but the tenants are the same as the cultivators, the tillers. So reforms were made for them as well, so that the rent that the tenor were supposed to give to the landowner was fixed. That means they were not subjected to be exploited by the landowners. The rent which they were supposed to give to the landowners were fixed by the government, so that no one can charge a higher rent that is fixed by the government. No one can charge a rent higher than the one fixed by the government. So the rent was fixed, and also the tenants were provided with some kind of job security. That means once they are appointed or once they are hired by the large farmers to work on their field, they cannot be removed from their work. Okay. And then students, another measure adopted was cooperative farming, where two or more farmers could jointly cultivate the land, and whatever will be the output will be shared among them in a proportionate manner. So all these were part of the land reform policy. And then students, another measure which was adopted under the agricultural reform policy was land ceiling. Land ceiling basically means prescribing a maximum amount of land, a maximum size of land that can be owned by an individual. That means one cannot own a size of land which is more than the prescribed size, which is more than the size which has been prescribed by the government. And if one is found to have land which is more than the size prescribed by the government, that extra or surplus land would be taken by the government, and it will be given to the small or to the landless farmers. So this was also one very important step, and it was taken to prevent the exploitation of the small farmers, and it was also taken to prevent the concentration of land in the hands of few rich farmers. And students, with the introduction of this land ceiling policy, what happened? Around 200 lakh tenants were given land holdings, okay, and they were freed from the exploitation of the zamindars or the land owners. So students, what happened? Even though these steps were taken, land reforms were introduced, land ceilings were introduced, but there were certain reasons which led to the failure of these agricultural policies. The first reason was powerful resistance from large and rich farmers. So students, the powerful or the rich or the affluent farmers could manipulate the legislative system, could manipulate the government by bribing them, by giving bribes to the officials, and thus they could escape this land reform and land ceiling policies. Then students, the second reason was absence of correct and updated land records. Since at that time there was no proper or correct land records, so the farmers, the big farmers, could easily escape those situation by transferring land in the name of some of their close relatives. So that is how they tried to prevent following these government rules and regulations. And then legal difficulties were there. The government was not committed enough to bring some positive change in the agricultural sector. Even though steps were taken, even though reform measures were introduced, those were not properly implemented by the government. There was lack of commitment on the part of the government as well. Only in some particular states these land reform policies, these agricultural reform policies turned out to be successful, because in those particular states the government was committed. But in the remaining states, due to the lack of commitment on the part of the government, what happened? It became very difficult to implement these agricultural reform policies on a practical level. Okay. And then students, the last reason was lack of power exerted by the poor farmers. Since these policies were basically meant to favor the poor and the landless farmers, but since they were very poor, they did not have the amount of money, or they did not have the amount of authority that was required to exert power. Okay, so since they could not exert power over the government, it became very difficult in the proper implementation of the agricultural reform policies. So all these reasons led to the failure of the agricultural reform policies. And then students, Green Revolution was introduced. So I think you all know about Green Revolution. Green Revolution was a process that brought radical change in the agricultural sector through the adoption of modern farming inputs and modern agricultural technologies. So what were the components of Green Revolution? Number one, use of high yielding variety of seeds. So HYV seeds were capable of producing output which is 3 times more than what can be produced by the traditional seeds. The second component was chemical fertilizers. So initially in the traditional method of agriculture, organic manure such as cow dung etc. were used, but now chemical fertilizers replace these organic fertilizers. And then students, pesticides and insecticides were also used to kill the pests and insects. Artificial irrigational facilities like irrigational pumps, sprinkler system, dripping system etc. were used. And then modern farming equipments, modern farming machines like tractors, threshers, harvesters were also used. And students, with the use of all these modern and improved technologies, the total agricultural productivity increased. So students, Green Revolution basically had 2 phases. The first phase was from mid 1960s to mid 1970s. So in the first phase, what happened? Green Revolution was only limited to the wheat growing regions, and it was limited to the states like Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Haryana. But in the second phase, the process of Green Revolution expanded and it started spreading to more and more variety of crops, and it started spreading to more and more number of states. Okay. And then students, the advantages of Green Revolution. So the first advantage was it led to an increase in the total agricultural productivity. As I have already told you, the agricultural productivity went up by almost 3 times. The second point is, with the increase in total agricultural productivity, India now no longer had to import food items from the other countries. That means India became self-sufficient in food grain production. Then the third reason was increase in the income of the farmers. The farmers could produce more, they could sell more in the market. As a result, their income and their profit increased. Then the next point, increase in the marketed surplus. Marketed surplus means the output, students, the surplus output which is sold in the market. Initially what happened, when the traditional methods were used, the productivity was very less, and whatever was produced was used by the farmers to feed their own family. They could not afford to sell anything in the market. But now with the increase in productivity, they could afford to sell the surplus in the market. So that surplus is known as marketed surplus, the amount that is sold in the market. Okay. And then students, it also enabled the creation of buffer stock. Buffer stock means stock of food grains which is maintained by the government. It is in fact maintained by one department of the government, FCI, Food Corporation of India, for 2 reasons. First, in order to meet the emergency situations, for example flood, earthquake etc. And second, to provide the food items to the poor and needy families, to the BPL families at a lower cost through the ration shops. So it also enabled the government to create buffer stock of food grains. And then students, all these led to the growth of the nation. The GDP increased, the productive capacity of the country increased. Okay. But students, the process of Green Revolution was not free of drawbacks. It also had various loopholes. So the first difficulty or disadvantage was increasing disparity between the rich and the poor farmers. We all know that in Green Revolution, modern farming inputs are used which are quite costly, and not all farmers can afford it. So what happened? There was a chance that the poor farmers will become poorer because they will not be able to afford this modern farming inputs. On the other hand, the rich farmers, the affluent farmers will afford this and they will produce more. So the disparity or gap between the poor and rich farmers will become even more. So that was one disadvantage of Green Revolution. Second, students, the loss of soil fertility. Excessive use of chemicals, excessive use of fertilizers led to the reduction in the fertility of the soil. The soil became infertile. Then the next was, student, environmental degradation. Okay, the excessive use of the groundwater, then the excessive use of chemicals led to the degradation in the overall quality of the environment. Then, as I have already told you, the excessive use of irrigation leads to a reduction in the groundwater table. The water level comes down. Water scarcity starts taking place. And then students, the last disadvantage was more prone to pest attacks. That means the HIV seeds which were used in Green Revolution were very much under the risk of getting attacked by pest. And if somehow one farmer's crops are attacked by pest, what will happen? His entire crop will be destroyed, right? So these were the disadvantages associated with Green Revolution. But students, fortunately, with enough government support, the farmers could reap positive benefits out of this Green Revolution process. The government gave the farmers various facilities. Subsidized fertilizers were given. Then the various research institutes find out ways as to how to avoid the crops being attacked by pest. Not only that, the farmers were also given credit or loan at a very low interest rate so that they can buy the modern farming inputs. So with so much of help from the government, the small farmers were also able to reap positive benefits from Green Revolution as much as the rich or the affluent farmers. But then students, what happened around 1960s? What happened in the 1990s? Sorry, in 1990s, around 65% of the population were still seen engaged in the agricultural sector, even though the contribution of the agricultural sector to GDP declined. That means even though agricultural sector's contribution to GDP started declining, but its contribution to employment increased. Can you all tell me why is it so? Because not enough jobs were created in the other two sectors, in the industrial and in the service sector. So where will the people go? They had no other option than to keep themselves engaged in the agricultural sector. And these led to one very major problem in the agricultural sector, that is known as disguised unemployment. So students, what is disguised unemployment? It refers to a state of unemployment where people are visibly employed but in reality they are not. That means their productivity is not counted, their work is not adding any value, and so they are made to work less than their actual potential. If a field requires the work of only 2 persons, but rather than working 2 persons, 7 persons are working, do you think that extra 5 persons are required? No. Do you think their productivity is adding any value? No. So that is exactly what happened in the agricultural sector as well. So this is considered as one of the failures of the policies adopted during 1950 to 1990. Disguised unemployment started taking place and it became one characterizing feature of the agricultural sector even today. So students, there was one long debate over subsidies. There were some economists who were in favor of giving subsidy to the farmers, whereas some economists were against giving subsidy to the farmers. So the points in favor of subsidy says that subsidy should be given to the farmers to help them experiment with the new technology. Since the farmers are poor, they cannot afford the new technology, so they will become reluctant to use the new technology. So they should be given subsidy or financial help by the government through which they will be able to test the new technology. Okay. Also, the farmers are poor, they will not be able to bear any kind of risk of crop failure. So it is very much important that they should be given some kind of financial assistance by the government. Okay students, also it says that if we eliminate subsidy, it will increase the gap between the rich and the poor farmers. So in order to maintain equality among both the rich and poor farmers, it is very important to give subsidy, and government should ensure that only the poor farmers should be given the subsidy, not the rich farmers. So these are some of the points in favor of subsidy. And then students, some points against subsidy says that once the purpose of subsidy is served, that means the main purpose of subsidy is to encourage the farmers to experiment with the technology. But once that experiment is done, once it is found out that that particular technology is useful or it is effective, there is no point giving subsidy again and again. So the point against subsidy says that once its purpose is served, there is no point giving any more subsidy. Also it says that since subsidies not only benefits the small farmers, but it also benefits the large farmers, as well as it benefits the fertilizer industry. So we should not give subsidy to the farmers, because the large farmers and the fertilizer industries will take advantage of it. Okay. And then students, it also says that subsidies are a big burden on the shoulder of the government. It increases the expenditure of the government. It increases the liabilities of the government. So one should not give subsidy. So there is a long debate which is going on even today regarding whether or not subsidy should be given in the agricultural sector. And students, one very important point regarding this which I want to highlight is that price acts as a signal. It is the price which tells us about the availability of goods and services in the market. If the price is high, we come to know that the supply is low or supply is less. If the price is less or very low, we come to know that supply must be very high. That is why price is low. But students, subsidy do not allow us to know about the availability of goods and services in the market. Okay, subsidy in fact do not allow prices to indicate supply of a good. Subsidy hides the price, actual price. So it do not allow us to know about whether there is increase in supply or whether there is scarcity of a particular item. So it results in the overuse of goods and services. Okay, for example students, if suppose fertilizers and pesticides are given at a subsidized rate by the government to the farmers, then even the poor farmers will start using it more. Why? Because they are getting it for free, and the overuse of fertilizers and pesticides will lead to environmental degradation. So what will happen, since it is given to them for free, they will not understand the impact of using excessive chemical fertilizers and pesticides. They will keep on using it more and more to such an extent that environmental degradation will take place. So it is said that subsidy do not allow the price to indicate the supply. Had there been no subsidy, from the price itself we would have come to know about the supply, and if the price is more, what we would have purchased less. But now since we are given that particular thing for free, we will not care how much we are using it, isn't it? So price acts as a signal, but subsidy does not allow price to act as a signal. Subsidy prevents price from indicating the supply that is available in the market, and on the way it leads to the overuse of resources. So that is why it is said that subsidy leads to the wasteful use of resources. Okay, so students, today we have basically discussed about the various agricultural reforms, land reform, land ceiling, and we discussed about the green revolution policy, its advantages and disadvantages, and then this long going debate over whether it is beneficial to give subsidy or not, and then how subsidy prevents price from acting as a signal to the availability of goods in the market. Subsidy leads to the wasteful use of resources. All right, so students, this is all about today's class. Today we have discussed about the agricultural sector as a whole. In case you have any doubt, do let me know. Okay, thank you, take care and stay safe.